Today I am talking with Mr. Nolan Jones. He is one of the co-founders of the Roll20 app that you can find online on roll20.net, N-E-T, roll20.net. If you are playing with friends, tabletop RPGs, but your friends moved away or you moved away from them, this is the solution to you. Please visit roll20.com. It will make your tabletop experience so much better and you can play so much more often with your friends. Please visit it. Then we will make Mr. Nolan Jones happy. So give it up for Mr. Nolan Jones, guys. Alright, so today I'm speaking with Nolan Jones, and I am quite sure that he is working on Roll20. Is that right?
Yeah, so I'm Nolan T. Jones. I'm the managing partner of Roll20, and I'm one of the three original co-founders of the site.
Mm-hmm. So, how did Roll20 pops into your head in the infant
So
stages?
I guess the popping in, I had been playing a little bit of fourth edition Dungeons and Dragons with some folks out here in Las Vegas, Nevada, where I live, and I started kind of bragging to some friends that I had left behind from college. In one of them was in Kansas, and one of them was in the greater Washington D.C., Virginia area,
Mm-hmm.
and saying, I'm playing again. It's a lot of fun. And they were like, oh, I wish that we could play. And so we looked at the other options that are out there, and we didn't really like any of them. And my friend who was in at that point he was in Wichita, Kansas. Now he's in the greater Kansas City area. Said, I think we could come up with something better than this. And so he programmed a methodology for us to be able to roll dice and chat with each other and have a map and tokens. And then I said we should put this on Kickstarter and see what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in April of 2012 that we did the Kickstarter, and we raised $39,000, and we're kind of off to the races. And realized that this really was a business and something that we could do something really cool with. And so the three of us worked to build this, and now it's to the point where we have 3.5 million people that are using Roll20, and in addition to that, I think 19 employees. So it's grown into quite the enterprise at this point.
Mm-hmm. It is very awesome. I have used it a bunch myself. Even though Denmark is very tiny, I live a long way from my friends. So it's very awesome that you can just drop in and play with your friends.
Right, and that's why it came to be. Was that the other thing? We weren't the first virtual tabletop. We weren't the first way to do this online, but we were really disappointed when we went and looked for our own purposes in how difficult the things that existed were to use. That we felt like it was really hard. So that's why with Roll20, we did things like it's just a link to get in. You don't have to go and do a whole bunch in terms of sign up or download or any of those things. We want it to be really quick, really easy to start playing. And so that's what we focused on, and that's what we achieved.
Did you say 3.5 million?
Yeah.
Are they active at all times?
No. Well, and that's one of the things in terms of a benefit in terms of the way that this as a business functions. I think is that think about a multiplayer game like World of Warcraft or something like that. There's people who get on in the morning and they play all day long, and they're logging 40 hours a week, and that's server costs that are wild. One of the really fortunate things about this as a business from our standpoint is that people schedule your D&D game or your Savage Worlds or whatever you're playing games, and so in the same way, it's like your kitchen table is not in use 40 hours a week for playing games. You schedule that we're going to play a game on Thursday night, and then we do it for 3.5 hours or whatever, and so that makes for a much more manageable server setup.
I could imagine that. So there's a new what's it called? That new D&D module coming out.
The Waterdeep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I just saw it on your website.
Mhm.
Is it like totally implemented into Roll20?
Yeah. So our team does we have a module production team. And essentially, what they do is that they get the InDesign files and the like from Wizards of the Coast, and they take that and they make it into an implemented product that really works in Roll20. And when I say they go and do this, it's really impressive, the work. So we found that it takes us, if it's like a 250-page book, we end up doing over 250 hours worth of work to make it function in Roll20 in a way that's convenient. I think it's one of those it's always intimidating when folks for the first time buy one of these products and they look at it and it's like, it's a $50 product, oh my gosh, and they go in and they're like, is this everything? And oh my gosh, it's not only everything. It's like in the book they'll describe, you come around and you use this map and there's 5 kobolds there. Well, my team has gone and they put down the 5 kobolds and they put all the stats on those kobolds and it's all ready for you to go. And then it's hyperlinked that you're in this city, and so you can go and you can click the link to get more information on this. And it's like it's like an endless maze of information that is addictive in terms of everything that it has that's available for you to use. I really think that the products that we've made in these realms are, I don't know, they're time savers for game masters.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things. It's not like, I think that there's always going to be a value to having a book and reading through an adventure in that form. But I think, the setup that we've done, it's like, it's a way that you can almost do it on the fly a lot easier. That you can kind of like keep your way through, like, okay, I may not have read this adventure 250 pages cover to cover, but with the Roll20 module, I clicked the link and it took me to this place and I know where we are and I can get us to the next scene. And that's, I think that's really cool and something that I really appreciate in terms of the work that we've made to make these things cool.
I also think it helps like new GMs out a lot.
Yeah. It's something, an early conversation I remember having in licensing with somebody from another company. He was saying something to me like, I was telling him how much that we wanted to have adventure module products and do more of that sort of work, and he was like, well, I don't understand. Like, this is not. I just want the rules and then my group make things up on our own. And I was like, well, how many years have you been doing that? And he was like, well, I've been playing for 20 years. I was like, that's not. There's lots of people out there who haven't been playing for 20 years, and so it's incredibly helpful for them to I think that sometimes people who have been in the hobby a long time forget that the very first adventure you ran that adventure closely. Like you were holding on to that book for dear life and trying to figure out what is the next thing and how's it going to work. And so I think that there's a huge value in these products for the first-time player and first-time game master. But on the flip side, I think, too, that there is a value for folks who have done a lot of stuff because it gives it to you in a format where it's really easy to remix. An example of the thing that I think is cool in the modules that we put out is that we usually have like a token page that'll be all of the monsters that were in a book set up and pre-statted as tokens. And boy, is it easy to then go throw down your own map and take, okay, I want 10 of these sorts of monsters and 3 of these and then 1 of these and bam.
Yeah.
You're off the races and have it going. So it's a really nice tool set. To be able to go and just jump in. But yeah, it is really, as you said, I think a lot of the appeal comes to those who are newer in the hobby, and I think that's great. I think that really expands the hobby a lot.
Have you seen more people lately on Roll20 than before?
Yeah, so I mean, we have statistically grown over time, yes. That every month our trajectory is upwards. And I think that that's something that the hobby overall is experiencing. You look at the amount of let's play material out there. So whether it's JP McDaniel's role play stuff, or whether it's Critical Role or any of the other things like Rivals of Waterdeep, that D&D's been putting on recently. There's all these shows out there that are people playing D&D, and there's still enough people watching those, and then there's still enough people we're seeing a renaissance overall for tabletop role playing in a way that is really, I think we're at the tip of the iceberg. That, and I think a lot of this has to do with kind of a circular come around from video games. My opinion on this is very much, and I think it's because it's so true to my own story, is that folks in their 20s, 30s, and even 40s got to start playing things like World of Warcraft or things like Final Fantasy, and so they're familiar with I have a character and I get its strength and dexterity and wisdom and intelligence and stats, and I try to gear on it to make it better, and that all of those things have their roots in the 1970s Gary Gygax Dungeons and Dragons pen and paper style tactical games, and so you have the familiarity with that sort of thing. But when you've played enough of those games, there comes this point where you're so limited by, I want to, the bartender, the non-player character bartender at the bar I go to, I want to argue with them about something, and that's not in the dialogue options, and I'm in love with this character who's a non-player character, and the dialogue options don't give me enough of it, and so that the boundaries of, or even just thinking about World of Warcraft, they keep on there's a new continent over here, there's a new continent over there. You couldn't get there. The game's been out for 10 years, but there's this secret spot that you couldn't get to for 10 years. That's not the case in role-playing games. Those boundaries are kind of diffused because it's the boundaries of your imaginations, and so it's really freeing to somebody who's played those sorts of games to go, I'm interested in going here and doing this and having less limits on me and what I want to do, and I think that I think the other thing is too, there's a huge appeal in the social aspect of it, because so much of our lives is so much of life now is something that is I guess it doesn't have the personality to it. It doesn't have the interaction and the social. Twitter is not actual socialization. It doesn't actually fulfill. And so because of that, Dungeons and Dragons and other tabletop role-playing games are very fulfilling, right? You are sitting there and having it. When those games are good, you're sitting there and you're having a conversation, and you're deciding, well, if we go and we double cross the Lich King like this way, it's really not going to work out well for us. And those sorts of things are huge appeal right now, and I think that we're only going to see more of that in the years to come.
One of the most awesome things about tabletop role-playing games is that it makes you put your phone down.
Yep.
Well, I know there's like the D&D Beyond stuff going on where you can have it on your phone. That's great and all, but try fly mode or offline mode.
Well, I think those things, it comes down to how you want to utilize so we have an app that focuses on character sheet stuff, and there's some people who really want that to make the math faster. And I'll say too, when I'm playing a game that is math heavier, I used to do this with 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons when I played it in person, but not so much. I would go back and forth between using Roll20 or not using Roll20 with, say, a game like Edge of the Empire, the Star Wars game where you've got the custom dice. It depends on how you want gameplay to flow. I think the challenge, no matter whether or not you are using your phone as part of the experience or not, is the game compelling enough that you didn't open a different tab, you didn't open a different application. And that's the same thing within Roll20. I know some people that are incredibly stringent and incredibly successful at when they're playing their games, they don't have their email open, they don't have Twitter open, they don't have those sorts of things. And then I know folks who, they make it into a multitasking thing, and that can be not as successful in moving a game along. So it just kind of depends on what you want and what you're after.
Yeah. One of the great things I think about Roll20 is you have such a great community built up around it.
Yeah.
That you have all these artists who contribute to Roll20. It's so awesome.
I mean, it's been really wild to see the amount of growth for particularly as you said, the marketplace. It's really impressive, and it's one of those things that is kind of humbling in watching how we've got so many folks who have come and become big time stewards of the platform, and really pushed us to develop more features and to do more things, and use the program in ways that we never could have imagined. I think particularly with the marketplace individual creators, it's been ingratiating to watch. It's like they have to see them move financially in ways that I remember when this started out and there was like nothing there financially, and now it's like, oh, there's all of these folks who are making far more. There are several folks who are making strong mortgage money off of what they're doing, and that's really exciting to see that that this is profitable for people in a way that is real and has some movement for them. So I want more of that is good.
So you mentioned that there was some features that you didn't thought of when you started Roll20 in its infant stages.
Yeah.
What was those features?
But I think the best one and the funniest one to most people would simply be when we started off, we swore up and down we were never going to do character sheets. And we said very, very plainly that we did not want to, that we didn't think the character sheets were part of a table, and so that was nothing we were going to do. And here we are with so much that is done in those realms differently, and I'm super amused by what that has become as an overall setup. That we've come to this point now where there's hundreds of character sheets that the community has put together that do all sorts of different things that we never thought, and that's really, really cool. And the sort of thing that we never could have anticipated. We were literally said that we weren't doing that to start, and here we are, and now that's a new part of the experience. So yeah, I mean, there's bunches of things that over time it changes what you're going to do, and I think that's good, and it's helpful to the realms that we're in, but. Yeah.
So where did your love for tabletop role-playing games begin?
Yeah, it's funny. We had not played a whole lot of tabletop role-playing games ahead of making Roll20. We had I would call it an embarrassingly small amount of hours. But for me, it was literally I was playing World of Warcraft, and a friend at the movie theater I was working at the time was like, you really need to play D&D, man, because it's like World of Warcraft with much more metal. It sucked me into playing some, and I got a kick out of it. Later on, when I came back to it, it was a matter of I'd been playing Halo and stuff like that with my friends, but we weren't having conversations, and this was a much better option in a different way for us to interact, and I've just kind of become a steward sense of role-playing, and I think the thing that's been bigger is that we've seen in making Roll20 kind of what our responsibility is, and we've taken that seriously.
So where do you see Roll 20 head? Where do you see your platform is going now? Um,
So
uh,
I think, yeah, there's a whole bunch of things that we could do, um, and that's a uh, I think one of the things to realize is that like there's so many technological changes that are happening in the world out there that it's going to be really interesting to see what the next, like augmented reality. I constantly point out as the thing that and that's not virtual reality. That's not like you're closed off
hmm,
with goggles on that you can't see through. It's more like Pokemon Go, where you can see through and you can interact with the world in front of you. And I see that as being, at some point in the future. We've just got to wait until something like, say, a Microsoft HoloLens is
mhm,
developed enough to do it. But I really do see that as kind of the future of Roll 20 overall. But in the meantime, I think one of the things that's most realistic to talk about in these realms is like there's 100 things we could do to make the interface better. And so we joke about it a lot. Is that there's just job security in the amount of things that you can make and change and make faster, more intuitive, or just better. And
mhm,
so we take that very seriously, and it's something that an example of something we talk about a lot is we'd love to do more with our looking for group features and make some of that more intuitive and smarter and make better groups for people, and all those sorts of things are stuff where um, we have all these millions of people on our platform that would be affected by that, and so you've got to do it carefully and you've got
mhm,
to do it
mhm,
right. But at the same time, we also have it's like not only do we have to do it carefully and right, but we also something huge will come of doing it
mhm,
that'll affect the role playing game industry overall. And that's a really wild position to be in.
mhm. Speaking of augmented reality, have you seen that guy on Twitter who has been making Mike Slay's maps into like three-dimensional buildings?
No, I haven't seen any of that.
It's very awesome. I'll send the link afterwards to you. But I actually think it's virtual reality because I think it's the HEC Vive he has been making it with. But he is making the Raven Loft. Is it called that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Castle Ravenloft.
yeah, exactly. He has been making that in layers, so you can like walk around it and choose what layer you're playing on. It's very awesome, but it's only a map, so it's not playable. But it's very awesome.
That sounds pretty wild.
Hmm. Um, you you you, you were talking about something else before. I just lost my stream of thought.
I was talking about looking for group and the things that
Oh,
we could do
exactly,
there.
exactly.
I mean, the possibilities are endless. I
Mhm.
think sometimes it's kind of funny when people, every once in a while when we're working on like big projects quietly. So like we released the Roll 20 Character Mancer, which is this tool that allows you to very quickly create characters, right?
Mhm.
And there's a whole bunch of things that we did to make that. So we released it initially with the Dungeons and Dragons elements to it, but we're working on Pathfinder and other. We made it in such a way that we'll be able to use it for whole bunches of different systems. As a
Mm.
matter of fact, my plan is that we're going to use it to take rule systems that otherwise wouldn't be a good fit for Roll 20 because they're not really map based, and make it so that the rule book, instead of just being a PDF, is something that you can actually use to quickly create characters, which is super cool for all these independent games that are out there. But when we were working on that, we kept it kind of quiet because we didn't know how long it was going to take, and there were a bunch of moving pieces to it and a bunch of licensing things we had to figure out to make it all work. Um, and so when yeah, the when that stuff happens, I want there to be a some ability for us to work behind the scenes and do that. But as we were doing things behind the scenes, there have been several times where folks are just like, you guys don't even care. You guys aren't even thinking about Roll20. And it's like, all we do. Like, there are 19 people on staff, and like, we all have lists of not only the things that we're actively working on, but like, here are 10 different things that personally matter to me in Roll20 that I want to get to. So, when you ask what the future is like, it's just knocking off some of those things, right? Like getting as many of those things done.
Are your main focus on D&D because it's like bloating up at such a fast pace at the moment, or are you more broad?
What do you mean by that?
I mean, like D&D has some wind behind it right now.
Yeah.
So is that going to like overshadow the other systems for a bit?
I think that right now, the D&D 5th edition is a game that has obviously gotten a lot of audience interaction, and so it's definitely made itself so that you can't ignore it. But I mean, at the same time, like we just released the beta test for our own game, Burn Bright, which is in large part an exercise in us working on making things better for other games on the website. Burn
Bright.
Yeah, Burn Bright, which is our science fantasy game, which has its own rule set, and we had James Citricasso, Jim McClure, Kat Cool, and Darcy Ross worked on developing that game with us, and that's the sort of thing where it was a conscious decision that we wanted to make certain that we had something that we were developing and we were invested in that would help make certain that we were doing and adding more tools for the future of the platform. So,
how long did that take to develop?
The time it takes to develop a new human life it was a long process.
Yeah.
But it's a process that's just like developing a human life. It's not done. Well, now it's born, but now we got to teach it to feed itself.
Yeah.
So right now we're in testing and going from there. So
one could find this on your website.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's a bunch of different blog posts and stuff about it.
Oh, okay. I'll check that out later. I haven't heard it. What else can one play on Roll20? Is it like, what's the thing called? Numenera or Pathfinder, D&D? What other systems?
So you can play anything that's not physics based. Is how I put it. So there's no. I mean, there's always a question of like how much you're going to have to. So, an example, we don't have the ability to. We don't have a licensing agreement to sell you Monopoly, but if you have the images to make a Monopoly board, you could play Monopoly on Roll20. It's just a matter of how much time you want to put into it. So, but you could play anything.
So let's go back to the character sheets, or like the whole campaign preparation stuff, because I have tried to prepare like when you start from scratch in Roll20, it's just bare bones. You really need like a thought in your mind to be clear on where to go. Are you making any helpful guides in a way to like help new players on new GMs to build worlds?
Yeah, I think one of the things that in particular in these realms is I think a lot of the Twitch content that gets made is very specifically geared towards that. That so much of what is being streamed is streamed with the idea of like this is to kind of help you understand how to get in, and that it's not intimidating, and that it's easy to do. I think one of the things though that's always going to be difficult to make understandable with some nuance, and I think that with that sort of nuance, it's like the way I describe it is like it's similar to playing in person. In person, you could play with a sheet of paper and pencil, or a whiteboard and a dry erase marker, and that's it. And then that would be all you use, and you could play games that way. Or you could go and you could buy miniatures and little sets and a really fancy set of dice and a big randomizer dice, those dice towers that you drop the dice into, and you can make this whole ginormous, magical thing.
You need to buy a house that has a basement.
Right. Yeah. And so, and Roll20 is the same thing. The Roll20, you can literally just come in and start doodling with the drawing tool, or you could go and flip to making this all these application programming interface, huge developed setups, and that's the sort of thing that there's a lot of options. So
I spoke to a guy called Guy Slanders that has to be that has the YouTube site called How to Be a Great GM. You know that one?
Nope.
Nope. Recently, he has been making a series called The Fabled Lands. It's a book that you read where you are the game master and the player at one time.
Choose your own adventure.
Exactly. I just couldn't find those words. Are you making anything like that?
Yeah, there's a few people who are doing stuff on the marketplace that is like solo player stuff, but it's nothing that we are putting a big emphasis on as Roll20 currently.
Okay. That would be awesome, though.
Yeah.
So if you don't have any friends at all, you can still use Roll20.
I think this sort of thing where it's awesome, but I think people will figure out those things from a marketplace standpoint without us. I think there's so many challenges and things we've got to do in the realm of adding new things to help people interact with others that we've got to rush there on that. So.
What do you want to see more of in the future from your community? Are there enough maps? Let's do something else.
No, I don't think that there's ever, there's endless places and art styles and things that you can do. So there's never really enough of things. There's technically more and more stuff that you can do. I think that my hope and dream is that it's more people giving us more views into their worlds and what excites them and what represents them. And I think that's something that we see overall in media right now. I feel like with movies, we're going through a major shift in Hollywood in terms of who are the actors and who are the directors and the stories that are being told, and it allows us to expand the canvas and see things that we haven't gotten on film before, or definitely haven't gotten on film with the sort of budget and prestige that we see, and I think that's exciting. Whether it's the goofier things like a Fast and Furious movie where the cast is this multilingual, multiracial, representing all sorts of different folks in a combination of ways, or whether it's focused into something like Crazy Rich Asians that was all shot, or so much of it is shot in a centralized location with a centralized language and focus. I think that's cool, and I think people being able to tell their own stories and show themselves in the world and share their culture That's the sort of thing that gets me excited, and we're seeing more and more of that in tabletop gaming. That there's whether it's transgender folks, queer folks, in general. There's just so many different stories that are available out there and things that can be done, and I get really excited when I see creators taking their lives and the things that inspire and excite them, and being willing to share that with the rest of us in an entertainment space. So I think that's the thing that, we always are on the lookout for that, and I think we're always kind of extra excited when somebody takes a product like that and chooses to release it via us.
It's also something that I have learned personally by playing Dungeons and Dragons, is that you want to get to know more people, because they may have a different playing style that can inspire you in your own games.
Yep. And that's something that it comes across in writing. It comes across in. There's so much that as a game designer you can do to inform and change the experience of what's happening. I mean, you think even just the differences between the core D&D books, but there's, I don't know, the universe is vast. There's a great many things we can do, and I think it's exciting, the choices that creators are making, and I want to continue to support them making bold and interesting choices.
What about your own personal campaign that you're going through right now? Do you have any?
So right now, the only thing that I've been playing with any regularity is our own game, Burn Bright. And with that, it's such a different experience, because it's like we're not home brewing, right? It's like we're making this game that we're then releasing to the public. And so when you see a rule and you want to fiddle with it, you're not just saying it's okay, the new house rule is this, that we're going to do this. You're having a conversation about, like, are we going to fundamentally change this rule for everybody that plays this game? And so it can become quite daunting and quite the rabbit hole to stare down at times. But it's fun. Well, I think one of the things that's great, like, that game's a really cool universe.
Is it like far future, or is it more closer to our timeline?
It's end of the universe type stuff. But I think one of the really interesting decisions that was made by the team was that they would do it without. There's no humans in it, and so I think that's really, I don't know. It makes it so, like, you have to kind of push the boundary on. Most games, it's like elves are humans with pointy ears that live a long time, and dwarves are short humans, and there's inherent things that come with that. And I think the decision to do away with that and really make it like, okay, these are alien bug things, and these are like really moving it away from these are robot people, and taking it and moving further away, I think it forces some different conversations, and I like that a lot.
Is the races in Burn Bright, are they still like ogres and elves? Or are they something completely different?
No, it's all completely, like, there's literally a species that is they're groups of bugs, and they're the head of, they all used to be connected in a hive mind, and they can't connect that large anymore. They can only connect in the tens of thousands, which is enough to make like a humanoid shape of bugs. And they're going through their existence dealing with that. And then there's like transforming style robots that feel similar to that universe, and but at the same time they can open up and let you ride around in them, and what's that mean, and what's their connection to their pilot. There's a bunch of different things.
Mhm.
And I like the way that not having the straight human analog gets you away from some of the, well, we're just playing with human race and eugenics in those ways that I think it's not as, it can be so ill-informed, and it can be so, I don't know, off-putting if done wrong.
Mhm.
And I think that one of the things that I like about how this game was done is that this was a game where I think they made some really strong choices about culture on top of, so it's like, did you come from an affluent society, or did you come from a society that was struggling? And because it's the end of the universe, there's all these migration things that are happening. And I feel like the approach to it was done with some empathy and some intelligence in a way that I'm really proud of.
Some guys that have done, the thing where you take the stereotypes from D&D and just break them down into pieces is the game Divinity Original Sin 2. Have you played that?
I have not, but I'm familiar with it, and I think that sort of thing is important. One of the things that was really important to us as we sat down and did species and stuff like that was there was no idea of like I think the assumption well, orcs are all evil because,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not true. I don't know any group of people on the planet that are all evil because. I know groups of people that make choices that make them not great people.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know anyone that because they were born in a place, well, you're just automatically an asshole forever. And so I don't know. I'm really pleased with what we've done with Burn Bright, and I'm excited to see what's next.
I'm excited too. I also have a buddy of mine that he always has this idea of the goblin who cries because you killed his father, right?
Yeah.
It's also a nice path to go down to away from stereotypes in tabletop gaming, because you always strive towards that Tolkien thing-ish, right?
Yeah, I think Tolkien is kind of the overarching thing. So that's the realm in which our brain goes to automatically with fantasy, and we need to break away from it and try other things.
Mm-hmm. I don't have any more, Nolan. Do you have something that you want to add to our talk?
No, nothing in particular. I do a fair amount of chatting about what all it is we do. And, right now, for us, we're kind of in end-of-year mode, trying to get as many things done before it starts to become holiday season as possible. So
if one were to get hold of you, where could one do that?
So you can get a hold of Roll20 at Roll20app on Twitter, and then myself personally at Nolan TJ on Twitter. My Twitter though is pretty point. I always feel sad for the people who are into role playing that follow me, because so much of the role playing stuff I do I do it via work, and I don't bring it home with me, I guess. So my personal Twitter is like Vegas hockey and reading manga, and it's or esports stuff that has nothing to do with people follow me as like, I am super into Dungeons and Dragons, and it's like, that is not what I'm tweeting about here, and I'm so sorry. So if you're into all that other nonsense, you might come check out my personal, but otherwise, at Roll20app has your role playing needs covered.
Great. So I think we will wrap it here. Thank you for being for finally being able to speak to me.
Yeah,
I was sick as fuck last time.
Oh, it's funny. it happened to me like 2 weeks ago that I got food poisoning and I had to cancel every meeting in the day. So I get it, man. It happens.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Nolan. It was a pleasure.
Be certain to shoot I wouldn't worry too much about shooting me the raws. But definitely once you get the finished product, get it out there and we'll get it retweeted to our folks. So
great.
Yeah.
Thank you. This was my talk with Nolan Jones. If you want to support this podcast, please do by visiting Patreon. I have made a Patreon right now, and it's called The Story Podcast. It's The Story Podcast on Patreon. I'll see you there, guys.